Today we are going to discuss our sense of smell. We'll also talk about the making of perfume, and we'll conclude by discovering how powerful our olfactory memory is. We generally assume that sight and hearing are more useful sources of information than our sense of smell. We know that man's sense of smell is much less developed than that of insects or mammals, who depend on it to capture their prey, flee from predators, and reproduce. Man could survive without his sense of smell, except for certain exceptional circumstances, like detecting gas leaks or a fire. But he would be deprived of a great many pleasures, psychological, erotic, and gustatory. It's a mistake to underestimate the role of smell in our lives. We may have less olfactory cells than rabbits or dogs, for instance, but our ability to appreciate and interpret our olfactory perceptions is greater than that of animals. Our knowledge of the sense of smell is as yet incomplete, but of course we do know that it is what enables us to perceive odors. Smells are omnipresent. We are not always aware of it, but our sense of smell is constantly telling us things about our environment. Smell has a part in our survival. For example, the smell of smoke warns us of fire. Also, smell gives us gastronomical and sensual pleasures. For example, the greatest satisfaction we get from a meal is not so much the flavor of the food as it is its aroma. While our nose is capable of detecting a multitude of smells, we only distinguish 4 different flavors: salt, sweet, acid, and bitter. Our olfactory acuity is 10,000 times more sensitive than our sense of taste. Try to identify foods when you're holding your nose. You'll see that it's not as easy as you think. At birth, smell is the first sense we use. It enables many newborn mammals and their mothers, including human beings, to recognize one another. Odors are volatile molecules. They float in the air and enter our nose every time we breathe. But how do we perceive and recognize such tiny molecules? Let's look at what happens when we sniff a fine wine. Each time we breathe in, the odorous molecules enter the nose and dissolve in the mucus. The various volatile components of the wine, there are almost 600 of them, mostly in the form of traces, reach a region in the nasal fossae called olfactory stain. This region, the size of a coin, is made up of more than 10 million sensory cells set to capture the odors. These olfactory cells, in contact with the outside, are equipped with microscopic cilia onto which the odorous molecules cling. Through a process as yet little known, the information is conveyed to the brain in the form of nerve signals. One of the theories put forward to explain this process suggests that the odorous molecules fit into specific receivers, somewhat like a key fits into a lock. Unlike the body's other cells, olfactory cells are constantly replaced, and the receiving cilia renew themselves every 24 hours. So every morning we wake up with new olfactory cilia. Also, once they have been sensed, the odors detach from the cilia and are expelled, along with waste and dust, on a sort of conveyor belt of mucus, which is itself renewed every 20 minutes. Once picked up by the sensory cells, the olfactory message is sent via the olfactory nerve to the olfactory bulbs, located just above the nose. The bulbs are believed to be marked out, which means that different smells stimulate different areas of the bulbs. Nerve signals are then transmitted from the bulbs to the brain's most primitive area, the paleocortex. From here, two tracts can be followed. The first joins the hypothalamus, where the hormonal regulatory centers are located, and which regulate, among other things, appetite, body temperature, and sexuality. The second tract leads to our gray matter, the neocortex, home of thought. Like animals, when we are hungry, the smell of food causes the hypothalamus to trigger a hormonal response which prepares our digestive system for food. At the same time, the neocortex identifies the smell of the food and makes us aware of the fact that it is time to eat. We now know that the majority of animals, including man, secrete chemical messages in the form of smells. These odorous molecules, called pheromones, induce behavioral or psychological changes in other members of the same species. The social organization of a good number of species is based on this language of odors. Butterflies perceive smells through their antennae. The females excrete pheromones that can attract males within a 12-kilometer radius. Even underwater, when fish are attacked, their damaged skin cells excrete a warning substance that sends their fellow fish into hiding. Most mammals mark their territory with urine or other secretions from special glands. Sudoriferous glands in the paws of rodents, for instance, leave an individual smell which ensures social hierarchy within the species. Smell, that original and ancient sensory system, is vital to the survival of animals. It has proven to be crucial in terms of social behavior and in setting up systems of communication within species. Odors play an important part in the life of human beings. However, our ways of dealing with them are ambiguous. On the one hand, we try to suppress certain natural odors we find unpleasant, like perspiration. And on the other, we perfume everything. You can't buy a hand lotion, foam bath, or even just a bar of soap without having to choose apricot, cedar, or green apple. Perfumes have been used since the beginning of civilization. Man was quick to make use of all the natural sources of perfume he could find. Flowers, barks, resins, wood. But the making of a perfume is not only an art, it's also a science. Today, toiletries, cleansing products, and cosmetics are all scented. We perfume everything, either to cover up smells we don't like, or because we just like our surroundings to smell nice. But what is a perfume? Basically, it's a mixture of scents. The scents are in fact volatile molecules developed in nature or by man in a laboratory. Most natural scents are derived from plants. They are extracted from the plants. Most extracts are volatile oils. We call them essences or essential oils. Essences usually come from flowers, but not only flowers provide perfumes. They can be derived from the leaves, stems, or fruit from various plants. Only 4 animal essences are used in the making of perfumes. They are musk, derived from the glands of muskrats and male kid goats; civet from the animal of the same name; castor from beavers; and ambergris from the intestines of sperm whales. Natural essences can be extracted by various processes. Processing by fats is primarily used to extract perfume from fresh flowers. It consists in pressing the flowers in a fatty substance or in macerating them with heat in that fat. Then the fats are kept. The result is a perfumed ointment which, once concentrated, yields the essence of the flower. Another process involves extracting essences using solvents, such as alcohol and benzene. To extract fruit aromas, the fruit is macerated in alcohol until the solvent soaks up all the aromas. The alcohol is then evaporated so that only the concentrated essence remains. The essence of some plants can be extracted by another process, which involves sending steam through a reactor containing the plant matter. As the steam goes through the plant matter, it becomes impregnated with the odorous substances of the plant. The steam is then condensed into scented water and essential oil. 1 ton of cedar processed in this manner will yield roughly 5 kilograms of essential cedar oil. In addition to traditional extraction methods, researchers have developed new procedures. The process here, called supercritical fluid extraction, uses carbon dioxide, which is identical to what we expire, but it is compressed under heavy pressure. The liquefied gas goes through the plant matter, in this case coriander seeds, to extract the aroma. In the decompression chamber, the gas resumes its original state, and the concentrated aroma, now pure, can be collected. A Canadian researcher recently developed an extraction process based on microwave technology. The process is extremely simple. To obtain essence of mint, mint leaves are covered with an organic solvent, transparent to microwaves. After processing a few minutes, the solution is filtered. The process takes a fraction of the time and energy normally required by other processes and provides an extraction of superior quality. Owing to the work of researchers with regard to natural essences, we now know every detail about the chemical composition of such essences. For example, research workers have managed to isolate several hundred different chemical components in essence of mint. Once identified, the molecules can be chemically blended under laboratory conditions. Perfume makers can select from roughly 5,000 natural and man-made essences. A perfumer can usually retain the memory of over 200 essence smells. Every perfume contains at least 3 elements: a solvent, such as alcohol, scents, and a fixative. The fixatives are mostly animal essences because their smell lasts the longest. Creating perfume is an art. Every success depends on the essences chosen and the proportions used. Natural or synthetic aromas are not used in the manufacture of perfumes. They're also part of our everyday food. For example, various essences, natural or synthetic, are added to ice cream to satisfy consumer tastes. Tests are conducted until the desired flavor is obtained. Food, perfumes, soaps, cleansing and beauty products. Making them requires hundreds of thousands of kilograms of various essences a year. As our cities become increasingly crowded and industrial smokestacks spew more and more foul odors into the air, the use of perfume should be on the rise in the future. Also, perfumes made today are at least twice as powerful as what we had in the last century. Perfumes play an important part in our lives. They affect our moods and especially contribute to our feelings of pleasure and well-being. Perfumes are always designed with a view to seduce, to entice. The flask, the packaging, the name, the way they're marketed, even the price, make them the ultimate luxury object. But do perfumes really have the aphrodisiac potential some claim? Well, apparently, yes, they do have a physiological effect. Many contain substances akin to male pheromones, which stimulate the system, like increasing the heartbeat. Enough so that you don't quite know what's making your pulse go up, the perfume or the person wearing it. But besides their physiological effects, odors in general are powerful emotional triggers. The smell of a hospital, for example, can be enough to bring on melancholy. Such is the amazing power of olfactory memory. Psychologists surprised by its accuracy have noted that this memory works differently from visual and auditory memories and weathers time better. We know now that olfactory memory not only records the smell, it also records all the sensory and emotional circumstances surrounding it. A memory thought lost forever can sometimes be vividly brought back by an odor. Smell memories are particularly strong, and psychologists are very much interested in them. Tests have shown that smell memory works differently from visual and auditory memories. To assess olfactory memory, subjects were given hundreds of objects to smell. The subjects memorized the smells one by one. Later, sometimes after an interval of 12 months, they were given the same odors to smell again, together with many other new smells. For purposes of comparison, a similar experiment was conducted with hundreds of images to evaluate visual memory. The results of the experiments demonstrate that while almost all the pictures are forgotten after 4 months, 60% of the odors are still recognized after a year. But how does the brain memorize smells? Odors, which are volatile molecules, are perceived by the sensory cells of the nasal fossae. A nerve signal is created that is transmitted to the olfactory bulbs, then onto the paleocortex, the oldest region of the brain. Smell is considered to be man's first sense. Indeed, of all our sensory stimuli, the olfactory stimuli reach the brain the fastest. It would seem that olfactory information is stored in the paleocortex memory as well as in the olfactory bulbs. Other parts of the brain, such as the hippocampus and the tonsils, also play a role in learning and olfactory memory. Furthermore, our olfactory, hearing, and sight systems are closely linked together by nerve connections. This is why the memory of a smell will bring to mind the entire emotional context of the event as we initially perceived it. We exploit and use the amazing faculties of olfactory memory for a variety of purposes. Customs officials train dogs to detect drugs through smell. The dog associates the drug to a toy he must find and retrieve, if he wants to be rewarded by his master's approval and affection. Dogs are also trained to locate firearms from oil and powder smells. Once trained, dogs won't forget a smell, even after long periods of time without doing detection work. Some hospitals train their medical students to identify infectious diseases and poisons by the smells they give off. This practice, widespread in the past, is becoming popular again because it enables quick and accurate diagnoses. For example, typhoid fever used to be diagnosed from its smell of fresh bread, and the plague from its green apple smell. The ability to recognize a smell after a long period of time is remarkable. But are we capable of actually re-smelling odors in our mind and re-memorizing them at will? Perfumers seem to know how an added ingredient will change a fragrance, but few of us have developed that skill. If we try to remember the scent of a lemon, for instance, what usually comes to mind first and most distinctly will be the image of a lemon. Some people believe they can remember smells at will, while others believe it to be mentally impossible. And yet, Some persons, particularly schizophrenics, claim they sometimes have olfactory hallucinations. Olfactory memory is unlike any other kind of memory. The study of how it functions, still unclear today, will perhaps provide scientists with understanding that will shed light on how memory works in general. Jasmine from Grasse, May Rose, Ylang Ylang, neroli, sandalwood, vanilla, essences that make up a famous fragrance. In itself, nothing particularly exciting. But when Marilyn Monroe declared that all she wore to bed was a few drops of Chanel No. 5, well, she made that formula one of the greatest aphrodisiacs of all time.